So this is the podcast number two reaction. Uh First we're gonna start it off with the podcast of the week that we got to watch, and that was How Sports and the Media Influence Our Beliefs. And it was a great TED talk by Jason Peterson, who did this at Columbia. And I think one of the good starting points that Peterson started off with is how sports bring us together through the good and bad with our teams and with wins and losses and how you became a fan, how you don't become a fan. And that just kind of relates back to fandom. I mean, I have my own experiences with teams that I like, but it goes hand in hand. If your team wins, then you have other people to celebrate those wins with. If your team loses, then you're not the only one on that team. You have other fans as well that are in the same position as you, and it sucks that their team lost. That's just kind of the way it is. But also too, when they draft new players and all the hype comes out, you're not the only one. And so it's good to have, someone to talk to and bounce ideas off of in that case. I think one thing it also relates to as well when you're thinking about that is, when teams win a championship, we saw it this year. The Denver Nuggets have been a team for about 55 to 60 years now in the NBA. And this was their first championship. Like the fans have waited a long time for that. You got to think there are fans who had to have been, probably just born when the team was created, or you got fans who were in their 70s and 80s who were in their teens when the team was originated. And now here they are, 70s and 80s, and they finally get to see their team win a championship. And it's just, it's a great experience. I think another great point that Peterson makes, he talks about sports gives us a hero. And, you want to be like that person. You want to dress like that person. You try to make that athlete into your own. Whereas like if you're an athlete, you're trying to play like that. But he brings up a good point, and he says, what if your hero isn't exactly a hero? So, for example, he kind of said, what if your hero was Mark McGwire, fantastic baseball player, but took steroids and cheated his whole career? Or what if your favorite player or your hero was Michael Vick, great NFL player, but got sent to prison for dogfighting? What if your hero was Mike Tyson or OJ Simpson? Mike Tyson was accused of rape at some point during his boxing career, and OJ Simpson had possibly one of the most famous murder trials in sports and in U.S. history. So, like, what if your hero was like them? Then how does that look? And I think it shows us that those kind of athletes make mistakes, that they're like us, they're like everyday people. However, as an athlete and being one myself playing in college, you're held to a higher standard than other people that are around you. So if you make a mistake, it looks a lot worse than the average person who makes a mistake because your name is normally already in the media. People look up to you. And that's the same thing where it goes as, if someone's favorite player does happen to be Michael Vick and, and their kids growing up and their kid's favorite player is Michael Vick, they don't want to put that kind of behavior and that influence on their kid. And they don't want that on themselves as well because it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a good example that you want to set. And as an athlete, you're supposed to set these examples for these kids who are coming up. As in this younger generation, you want them to follow in your footsteps and be the best they can. And I think one of the last good points that Peterson made in this podcast and in this TED Talk was that he said that information that we find through the media has different effects on how and what we think is important and how we formulate a public opinion. And I think one of the good examples that I kind of got out of that from media reporting is that the media does not thrive without sports. Sports does not also thrive without the media. And it kind of goes hand in hand. One doesn't work without the other. And kind of like I think one of the big things with sports is that with sports, you expect to see the unexpected. Like when the NCAA tournament rolls around for basketball, the really low seed being the really high seed, and everyone starts following them. Like this year, we saw that with Fairleigh Dickinson making a run to the Sweet 16. We saw Florida Atlantic, another small school, go to the Final Four. We saw a bunch of schools like that make it all the way there. It's a great experience. It also happens in basketball. We had the 8 seed Miami Heat go to the finals for the first time ever. An 8 seed went to the finals. We also see in football, you get two teams, playoffs, go 40 points back and forth. Best game of the year gets talked about. It's the same thing in baseball. A guy throws a no-hitter. Guy throws a perfect game. It's all the unexpected stuff. A guy hits the cycle. Someone gets 5 or 6 hits in a game. It all goes back and forth and hand in hand that every day you're expecting to see something different. And that's why I think sports goes so hand in hand with the media, because if there was no sports, the media would still be there for our news, but it would just make media boring. And if there was no media, sports would still be fun to go to, but if you don't go to the games, then you miss out on the excitement. You'll just read it the next day, and or you would even miss it, honestly. You wouldn't even be able to read it the next day with no media. So you would miss these events because you have to go. That's why they go hand in hand. The media gives you that chance to feel that you're involved with everything going on and all the sports happening at that time. So that's kind of what I got out of this podcast. And I think it was very well done. And I'd say that this was a good experience and helped me learn more things going into the next part of our course. So, yeah.